Dr. Carmichael Crutchfield, the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Dean, and I want to welcome you on behalf of our President, Jody Hill, who's out of the state at this moment. Welcome to the Bowen Lecture Series at Memphis Theological Seminary. The Bowen Lectureship was established by the Board of Trustees to honor the Bowen family who live near Waverly, Tennessee. The Bowen family left their farm for the support of Bowen's Chapel Church, and after it ceased to exist, for the education of Cumberland Presbyterian ministers at Memphis Theological Seminary. Over the years, this lectureship has come to provide the opportunity for the seminary faculty to share their research and study. The lectures are given every 3 years. Former Bowen lecturers read like a who's who of Memphis Theological Seminary faculty. They include Dr. Virgil H. Todd, Jr., Dr. Joe Ben Irby, Dr. William T. Ingram, Jr., Dr. Johnny Gardner, Dr. W.E. Knickerbocker, Dr. Robert L. Brawley, Dr. Clinton O. Buck, Dr. Paul B. Brown, Dr. Ronald Cole Turner, Dr. Stephen Parrish, Dr. Paul DeCarr, Dr. Mitzi Miner, Dr. Robert S. Wood, Dr. Carmichael Crutchfield, Dr. Lee Ramsey, Dr. Andre Johnson, and Brother Jeffrey Groves, FSC, and Dr. Janelle Baker. Tonight's lecture features Dr. Christy Woodbury-Moore, and I would be remiss if I did not highlight that her research reflects the kind of work that is typical of the faculty at Memphis Theological Seminary. Scholarship here is grounded in the church, both locally and at the denominational level, and in community organizations. Our faculty teach from and for the broader church and society, integrating scholarship with piety and justice. And at this time, I'm going to pray, and after I pray, I bring up Dr. Ferris Blunt to introduce tonight's Bowen lecturer. Let us pray. Oh God, for this space and for this time, we are grateful. We thank you for the scholarship of Dr. Christy Woodbury-Moore. We thank you for those who are in attendance tonight to participate in this lecture. We thank you for all of the research and all of the work that has gone into prepare for tonight. And we thank you for the leadership of those as part of our committee, Community Engagement Committee, led by Dr. Ferris Blunt. We ask now you guide and direct our thoughts and our ways tonight, that they might be proven to be great and lifting to you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Dr. Blunt.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Ferris Blunt. I'm the Tyrone Adam Burroughs Assistant Professor of Theology here at Memphis Theological Seminary. And as I shared last week, a couple weeks ago during our last lecture, although our seminary is closing in a few months, we're still called to steward our mission well here, rooted in scholarship, piety, and justice. And there's no one better, I think, that embodies this mission than the Reverend Dr. Christy Woodbury-Moore. The Reverend Dr. Christy Woodbury-Moore currently serves as the Associate Professor of Spiritual Formation, Associate Dean of Doctoral Studies, and Director of Supervised Ministry at Memphis Theological Seminary. She facilitates the formation of faith leaders invested in theological education in the church and the academy. Entitled Give Me My Stuff in Defense of Black Womanhood, Dr. Moore's Demon Work explores the intersections and nuances of the Black woman's experience in the world from a womanist perspective. Her research interests include formation of the seminary and post-seminary student, womanist theology, practical theology, women in ministry, and intersectionality of our faith and lived experiences. As a point of personal privilege, she is my first lady as I serve at the Metropolitan Baptist Church here in South Memphis under the direction of the Reverend Dr. Michael L.W. Moore, who she's married to, and her lovely son, Michael Moore II, as well. She's an excellent scholar. She's a brilliant preacher. She's a person that loves God and loves God's people deeply. So I deeply believe that you're in for a treat, as she has been one of my deepest mentors here in the city of Memphis. So without further ado, would you please welcome the Reverend Dr. Christy Woodbury-Moore.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Thank you, Memphis Theological Seminary, for its commitment to scholarship. I thank my colleagues and friends who come out of hiding and have traveled far, fellow faculty members, for the vote of confidence to deliver tonight's lecture. I thank the president in his absence and the vice president of academic affairs, Dr. Crutchfield, for their support and leadership. I thank the staff who do the work behind the scenes to ensure hospitality goes forth. I want to acknowledge my husband, Dr. Moore, my son, Michael Moore II, my son's godmother, Natasha Jackson, my parents, my mother, Kay Simmons, who's watching online, my father, Earl Simmons, my twin, who is present. I also want to acknowledge my sisters, god-sisters, Asia and Tanika, and my godparents, Renard and Wanderer, my students who are here, and my sorors who are watching as well. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the great cloud of witnesses that stand with me. I speak their names because I believe that every space I occupy, they enter with me. The late Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon, my mentor and friend, and my grandmother, Lillian Travis. My D-Men project, Give Me My Stuff, in defense of Black womanhood, is the impetus for this lecture, as well as the book project in which I am currently engaged. It is because of my Doctor of Ministry research, coupled with my own lived experience, that I write about Black womanhood. I am deliberate in my saying this because I serve as the director of the D-Men program. It is my D-Men work that led to this lecture series. So those current and future doctoral students watching or listening know that the work God has placed in your hands matter. And if you allow it, it can grow into something you couldn't imagine. Are we happy houring today? No is a complete sentence. She believed she could, but she needed a break, so she said no. It's okay. You can keep your magic to yourself. Keep it tucked away. They'll have to find another wonder for today. You don't always have to be the one to save the world. It's okay, girl. That's from Tasha in Lullaby. The flourishing of Black women demands that space is created just for them. Having to be all things to all people most days, Black women need scheduled time to be for themselves. We need somewhere that does not require the mental gymnastics of navigating white fragility or Black oppression that is not our own. Essential to our flourishing is time dedicated to laying down the burdens of being a partner, wife, mother, sister, friend, daughter, employee, church member, community builder, and more. Time set aside to attend to our social and emotional needs makes Black women better for themselves, and that is sufficient enough to make it a priority. For this lecture, I lean into Alice Walker's womanist definition that says a womanist is one who loves herself regardless. Or if you prefer Stacey Floyd Thomas's exposition of Alice Walker's definition by calling it redemptive self-love. Floyd Thomas says that redemptive self-love is an assertion of the humanity, customs, and aesthetic value of Black women in contradistinction to the commonly held stereotypes characterized of white solipsism. It is the admiration and celebration of the distinctive and identifiable beauty of Black women. Redemptive self-love is a reaffirmation of Black womanhood in all of its full creation. It is the essence and freedom of Black women's cultural, physical, and spiritual expression. It is Black women's unconditional and relentless resolve to enjoy the range of their common sense and the pleasures of their individual senses. In laywomen's terms, redemptive self-love is saving the self through loving the self. Loving one's self regardless becomes the invitation to discipleship after the sermon. When the figurative doors of the church are open and the preacher asks, "Is there one?" she or he is asking in this instance, is there one who will come down the aisle to love themselves regardless? Is there one who would come running and asking, what must I do to love myself unconditionally, relentlessly, and fiercely? Redemptive self-love is Black women's ability and capacity to save herself by realizing that it starts with loving herself regardless of the hegemonic forces at work without and within. When Black women choose to love the self, her being demands an alternative ethical view of society. Redemptive self-love involves agency, self-discovery, and community reformation that allows Black women to unashamedly and unapologetically be their authentic selves in the face of people, systems, and structures that overtly and covertly encourage them to conceal parts of themselves, if not all of themselves. For Black women whose personhood and voice have been relegated to the background and in some cases non-existence, agency is liberation. Agency is giving voice to the silence. It is the ability to say it, even when it is risky. There's a powerful scene at the end of The Color Purple that embodies agency. Suge says, "Celie coming with me." Albert says, "Over my dead body." Suge says, "Is that the way you like it?" Albert turns to Celie and says, "Now what's wrong with you?" Celie says, "You a low-down dirty dog, that's what's wrong. It's time for me to get away from you and into creation. And your dead body be just the welcome mat I need." For the first time in the movie, Celie speaks up for herself. For the first time, she is not passive or submissive. She is not docile and obedient. Celie finds her voice, and she really gives it to Mr. the same way he's been giving it to her in the past. This is the first time she felt free enough to speak her mind no matter the consequence. Notable scholar and womanist Audre Lorde proclaims our silence won't protect us. You are never really a whole person if you remain silent, because there's always that one little piece inside of you that wants to be spoken out. And if you keep ignoring it, it gets madder and madder and hotter and hotter. And if you don't speak it out, one day it'll just punch you in the mouth. Celie realized that her silence would not improve her situation. Her silence would not make Mr. treat her better, and so she risked a roof over her head, clothes on her back, and rejection from both men and women to say it. I say both men and women because often women's internalized oppression lead women to oppress other women. Internalized oppression inflicts self-hatred and the hatred of women like us. So Celie gives it to him. She exercises agency, the capacity to assert oneself as well as to stand firm in one's position. Agency is freedom. So redemptive self-love gives Black women permission to say the hard truth out loud in an effort to free ourselves from oppression that has been placed on us, as well as self-imposed bondage. Shaniqua Walker Barnes posits that in order to get out from under the labels that confine Black women, specifically the Barnes label, that's the strong Black woman, is not to replace it with a new label, as this would only exchange one problem for another. Rather, the goal of healing then is not a concrete image or a new monolithic Black womanhood. Rather, the goal of healing is to embark upon the journey of self-discovery and self-definition. Thus, the appropriate question that pastoral care should help strong Black women to answer is not who should we be, but how do I discover who I am? Therefore, redemptive self-love allows us to discover the self anew. Self-discovery is more about acceptance rather than critique. This notion of acceptance is critical to healthy self-discovery. And I would go so far as to say it is the seed of healthy self-esteem. The ability to explore ourselves, to discover ourselves anew, and to embrace ourselves without the pressure or demand to change anything is the beginning of healthy self-esteem. I define healthy self-esteem as an appreciation of oneself, which includes an awareness and acceptance of one's needs, desires, strengths, and limitations. It is the ability to love yourself as you are and the courage to walk away from any person or situation unable or unwilling to do the same. African American women have tolerated archetypes of who we ought to be. Both Black men's and Black women's identities have been bound up by the cultural mandate to be strong or to be something or someone we cannot be. Emily Town says Black women in particular have been confined to and oftentimes expected to fit into one or more of the negative stereotypes like Mamie or the Jezebel and the Sapphire. Additionally, we are expected to be mother, housewife, diplomat, referee, counselor, and cook, and that's just at home. And this is so true. The church, our jobs, and our communities also insist we fit into their boxes. Self-discovery starts with who am I once I take all of this off that I either have agreed to wear or have been coerced into wearing. Self-discovery is a reorientation to our humanity. It screams, I am human first. I am not a machine or a workhorse or a robot. I am a human being who needs care, appreciation, and rest. I am not perfect, and I'm okay with that. Even in my current non-perfect state, I have value and worth. I deserve to be respected, to be loved, and to be treasured. Self-discovery resolves the issue of being good enough by discovering you are enough. Self-discovery allows us to take off the mask and see ourselves naked, vulnerable, strong, and weak, secure in some areas and reaching for security in others. For a change, the Black woman has permission to think about and focus on herself and no one else, to rediscover her favorite color or favorite foods. Furthermore, self-discovery allows African American women to come face to face with incorrect thinking, cycles of destructive behavior, and other issues that may have contributed to her unhappiness or unfulfilled life. Self-discovery assists with coming to grips with the lies we've been told for so long about others and ones we've told ourselves about our beauty, our value, and our worth in the world. Furthermore, self-discovery helps us to come to grips with our limitations as human beings. It causes us to recognize the need for others and a power greater than ourselves. Despite the liberating tradition of women's inclusion within the ministry of Jesus, women have often been omitted from true community. Black women in particular have, on one hand, always been highly visible, and on the other hand, have been rendered invisible through the depersonalization of slavocracy and subsequent racism, classism, and sexism. This veiled existence is further exacerbated in the home and in the workplace as Black women are talked at rather than to. They're often seen working and doing, but rarely at the table sharing their thoughts. Black women are further estranged from the church, to which they serve tirelessly. As early as the first woman called to ministry, the church community rejected rather than embraced her gifts. Even today, in my own experience, I have yet to hear my uncle, who has been pastoring over 30 years, acknowledge my call to ministry, let alone embrace it. Therefore, Black women are compelled to rethink their community. They are encouraged to take an active part in forming and reforming their community in ways that nurture, support, and love them where they are. African American women need to be given permission to let some folks go and at the same time create space to allow others in. So often we do not recognize the power to choose. We have been socialized to keep the peace and to grin and bear with family members because they are family, or tolerate friends and coworkers because it's the Christian thing to do. However, we have the freedom to choose our community. We are not obligated to tolerate folks. In choosing our community, we also choose ourselves. While we are not able to choose our family, we are able to choose who we allow the privilege of taking up space in our lives. So often we feel obligated to family. We feel as though it's the right thing to spend time with folks that do not honor us, simply because we share a bloodline. Survival techniques of slavery and Jim Crow, along with the ways in which we were socialized to be loyal to our family regardless, have contributed to the prison we find ourselves in regarding family members. Black women need to be able to let go of toxic folks in their community, even if they are family. That is not to say we should be rude and disrespectful. We should love them from a distance, as my mother would say. The ability to form and reform our communities allows us to control who we let in and out of our lives, giving us a choice we didn't know we had. Are we happy houring today? This is a shout out to Dr. Cross and Dr. Clay Crawley. The year was 2020, or maybe it was May or June of 2020. I'm not really sure. Thinking back, I'm less accurate about the month. However, the year was clear to me. It was the year of the pandemic. How can anyone forget? Schools shut down, airplanes were grounded, cases were increasing. Churches were scrambling to adjust for the long haul. Nobody was going back to church anytime soon. I was home, my husband was home. As a pastor of a large congregation, he was busy building equipment so that he can create a pulpit in the living room for online worship. Our son was 5 at the time. Yes, he was at home too. The freedom of seeing my friends in person was taken away, and I remember feeling alone, isolated, and disconnected. I missed being in community. It started out as a text to my girlfriends. Can we do happy hour? We negotiated a day and time, and one of us set up the Zoom and we logged on. At times, it was spirit-filled. Spirit-filled. That means we had something other than water. At other times, it was just us sharing, laughing, even crying. It was our method of staying connected and remaining sane during the pandemic. Every week, we would have happy hour. It became a regular gathering. We continued to do it for a while after the pandemic. It wasn't long before we were back to the daily grind and daily life-saving activities of Black women. We were busy doing stuff. We were back to taking kids to activities and managing our marriage relationships and discerning career moves. We were back to being robots for the system. In the words of Tricia Hershey in her book, Rest as Resistance, we were back to donating our bodies to a system that still owes a debt to my ancestors for their labor. Ultimately, we were back to neglecting ourselves and each other. It was in this space I realized I needed the happy hour we had been doing during the pandemic. I longed for it. That's when the question evolved. Can we happy hour turned into, are we happy houring? Black folks know how to turn a noun into a verb without asking permission from an English teacher, don't we? The church be churching and the job be jobbing and so on. The phrase became code for it's time to carve out time for ourselves and each other. The phrase evolved into a call for sisterhood and communion. Are we happy houring was a war cry or a rallying call. At times it served as an SOS. When I was too drained to write it out, I would simply send HH ? My girlfriends understood. They knew I needed them, even if it was only for 30 minutes. They would respond in the affirmative, and we would log on at the appointed time. Are we happy houring is more than a one-time question we ask on Friday at 3 p.m. before we leave work. It serves as an act of resistance to the systems and structures that have negated Black womanhood and personhood since setting foot in the Americas. There is an extensive library of works that attest to the cruel and dehumanizing experience of chattel slavery, segregation, and Jim Crow for African Americans. The slavery experience was destructive to the historical identity of African people. Naeem Akbar notes the repeated separation of mothers and children and the loss of language, culture, and natural religion worked to dispose the real African self. Furthermore, historical memories have been handed down to succeeding generations who continue to think, feel, and behave in ways that are both consistent with past generations of traumatized folk and reflective of a psychological maladjustment that is detrimental to their future. Historical memories, according to Akbar, is the notion that individual behavior can be influenced by collective factors which are historically remote. Scholars like William Goodall, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Carter G. Woodson and more attest to the inhumane treatment of Africans in America. African American women occupy a unique space in the narrative of slavery and oppression. Katie Cannon names 3 distinct yet overlapping roles of the female slave: the brood sow, the work ox, and sexual object. As brood sow, the female slave was mated with a stud or black man and was forced to give birth at least once a year. Breeding was a source of financial gain. More slaves, more labor, more output equaled more money. As the work ox, female slaves worked from sunup to sundown, no matter their physical condition. She was required to work alongside male slaves doing the same job. Jacqueline Jones describes a slave narrative where a mother of 15 carried her youngest with her to the field. And when the child was hungry, the mother would slip the child to the front and feed it and continue working. The female slave was obligated to her master and incidentally her own family. The female slave lived in constant awareness of her social vulnerabilities and in perpetual fear that any male, black or white, may single her out. Unwanted pregnancy, sexual assault, master's mistress, rape, and breeding were all fair game because the Negro woman was unprotected by law and public opinion. She was the property of her master, and her daughters were his property as well. Within slaveocracy, the protection and superiority of whiteness requires the vulnerability and inferiority of blackness or black people. Patricia Hill Collins describes 4 controlling images: the mamie, the matriarch, the welfare mother, and the whore. These images or archetypes were used to justify racist, sexist, and classist attitudes toward black women. Teresa Snowden adds to this list the angry black woman, a conflation of the other controlling images. The angry black woman is the antithesis of acceptable behavior and therefore becomes a controlling image in and of herself. The angry black woman has been used to assault and diminish women like Maxine Waters, Jasmine Crockett, and Kamala Harris. To add, the trope of the angry black woman is reinforced in everything Tyler Perry produces, and it is now more so prevalent also on Saturday Night Live skits. While black women continue to police their emotions, media and social media constantly undermine their efforts. Exacerbating the challenges faced by black women is the fact that black women must also manage a triple consciousness: black, American, and female. All of these factors affect the milieu of black women and black womanhood. To ensure black women were understood as inferior and immoral, the Cult of True Womanhood, published in mid-19th century, articulated the attributes of true white womanhood. The attributes of true womanhood by which a woman judged herself and was judged by her husband, her neighbors, and society could be divided into 4 cardinal virtues: piety, purity, submissiveness, and domesticity. Put them all together and they spell mother, daughter, sister, wife, woman. True womanhood became the standard by which white women judged themselves and the unattainable goal of every black woman of the time. Bell Hooks asserts, in the Victorian world, where white women were religiously covering every part, black women were daily stripped of their clothing and publicly whipped. reinforcing the value placed on Black bodies, particularly Black female bodies. Over 300 years of intentional and deliberate devaluation of Blackness and womanhood have passed, and Black women are still experiencing the impact of slavery and Jim Crow. Naeem Akbar, in Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery, speaks of the ghost of the plantation that haunts the psychological and social processes of African American men and women. The book, The Psychology of Blacks, further emphasizes the long-term impact of slavery by adopting the term post-traumatic slave syndrome coined by Dr. DeGruy, where the patterns of psychological adaptation and survival skills Black folks continue to use represent residue of past trauma suffered by our elders and ancestors in our community. It is no secret that the centuries of slavery and systemic oppression, coupled with internalized oppression, can lead to socialization for surviving. It is the standard by which everything is measured. Whiteness reigns supreme in womanhood, in attire, and in social norms. The impact of socialization is quiet, indirect, and oftentimes elusive. It is embedded behavior and acting out of internal and unspoken language. Socialization of Black women is an acting out of internalized oppression and external oppressive forces. The two work together to create behavior that facilitates one's survival in an oppressive society. Long-term effects of a socialization for survival bring with it psychosocial issues as well as physical dis-ease. Stressors that lead to psychological woundedness prevent African Americans from engaging in movements of liberation. Dr. Alvin Poussin, an African-American psychiatrist and expert on race relations, have concluded that African Americans are at high risk for maladaptation, behavioral disorders, and mental illness throughout the life cycle. In comparison to the stressors in Hispanic populations like poor communication, higher unemployment, the stressors in the African American community like racism and oppression are harder to identify and measure. However, racism and oppression are still the foremost contributors to mental illness in the African American community. Racist aggression is the breeding ground for a psychology of victimhood in the psyche of Black folks. When this is added to the expectations of African American women as posited by the archetype of strong Black woman, Black women are vulnerable to depression and anxiety disorder. These disparities point to the enduring nature of racism, sexism, and classism. At the same time, it points to America's value system and the woman's role. Society values the idea of a good, dutiful woman, caring for her children and family, the same ideals touted by the cult of true womanhood. So while the cult of true womanhood was not meant for Black women, somehow Black men and women saw these ideals as something to aspire to, and therefore placed these expectations on themselves. Therefore, Are We Happy Hour conveys deeper meaning within my lived experience. I've heard countless women in my church say things like, I've never prayed for myself. I don't know how. I've always tended to my family's needs first. It's how I was raised. I just do what I see my mother doing, and that's work. I recall stories from women in my life who have gotten up from their sick bed to do housework because their husbands were pulling into the garage and they didn't want to appear lazy. Their actions were less about their husband's requirement of them and more about how they have been socialized and what they were taught about being a dutiful wife. Somewhere down the line, they learned that sickness was not a good reason to rest. So they got up and made themselves busy doing housework. They chose somebody other than themselves. They could easily sacrifice themselves to care for family members, co-workers, or the next door neighbor. I heard someone say last week that Black women will readily set themselves on fire to keep others warm. And I must confess, I've learned to diminish my own needs in favor of the desires of others. I cannot put my finger on who or when I learned this behavior, but it was certainly reinforced throughout the years. Later in life, I came to realize that I learned what many Black women have learned implicitly in their families. Being a Black woman means putting others first and leaving what's left for yourself. At the time of this writing, we as a society are enduring the burdens of the Trump administration. To be clear, The marginalized and the disenfranchised are burdened. Colleges and universities are faced with the threat of losing federal funding. The Department of Defense has taken on its original name, the Department of War, because it invokes strength and power. Charles Kirk, right-wing conservative, who said on several occasions that the casualties we will incur to protect the Second Amendment right to bear arms is worth it, has been killed on the exact hill he so arrogantly stood on. Much has transpired, and it's still early in this administration. I can say more, but if you're listening to this, you've lived it or still living it, depending on the time stamp and whether the upcoming election cycle in your area has granted relief. We are tired. I am tired. This black woman who was one of the 92% that voted for better is tired. I have often heard my friends say, I'm the 92%. I have done my part. I'm entering a season of rest and prioritizing myself. Countless articles and blogs share the sentiments of black women being tired, especially after the 2024 election. To be clear, black women were tired long before that. However, the election results of 2024 became the infamous straw that broke the camel's back. Essence magazine article that says black women are done. We are reclaiming our power after the 2024 election. The article DONE is an acronym. D stands for double down on rest and dedicate yourselves to healthy boundaries. O is for own your stuff and let everybody else own theirs. N stands for nurturing yourself first and then nurturing the community. And E is for extend the same grace you extend to everyone else to yourself. The article stated what I've been feeling for some time. Take care of yourself. Make you a priority. Move yourself up from the bottom of the list. Do it now because it's long overdue. From navigating an oppressive society to saving lives daily, to begging folks to trust our wisdom and our experience, it's time to carve out real time for ourselves. Black women stay saving lives. Before 8 a.m., we have saved countless folks from fashion ruin, mental breakdown, missed appointments, misplaced uniforms, and more. The board meetings black women have with themselves to ensure everybody within their care has what they need, when they need it, and how they need it is a science. Black women do all of this all while getting dressed, mitigating crises, and driving to church without vocalizing the conversation to others. She navigates fragile egos and constant mediocrity, all while being questioned about her own expertise and knowledge. Oftentimes, we set ourselves up to be all things to all people unconsciously. I am reminded of the myth of the Superwoman by Michelle Wallace. Wallace asserts that the Superwoman, a woman who has inordinate strength and is stronger emotionally than most men. Strength here is expanded beyond physical strength to include the capacity constantly and consistently to bear emotional, psychological, and spiritual burdens of others without relief. I was talking to a friend the other day about a work matter. She was sharing how her supervisor and colleagues call on her constantly to assist them, and that one day she stopped helping them long enough to ask herself, why do they need me so much? She realized that being able to answer the questions or solve the problem quickly became a crutch for her coworkers. They no longer had to figure it out themselves because she made herself available. That epiphany made a light bulb go out for me. Black women had to learn how to problem solve early on because we could not depend on others for help. Our fathers and brothers were out fighting a world still bent on destroying their bodies and spirits. Black women were home waiting to bandage their wounds, as well as strategizing ways to solve problems without burdening them and without asking white men or white women for help. We were compelled to utilize our intuition or mother wit, resources at our disposal, and a community of women we already knew. From that crucible, Black women collaborated and strategized to build networks, share information, and problem solve to help our communities. It is from this place women, Black women specifically, continue to be helpful, supportive, and the backbone of organizations often dominated by male leadership. However, Mel Robbins says, let them. The author of the bestseller, Let Them Theory, says two simple phrases, let them and let me. Let them means releasing the illusion of control. If people cancel, if they don't support you, if they judge you, if they misunderstand your boundaries, You let them. Stop making their behavior your responsibility. Let me posit that you give yourself permission to say no, to protect your time, to prioritize rest or growth. In Christy's language, let them try to figure it out first instead of always offering to do it for them. Let them struggle and strain a little bit. Let them use their own critical thinking skills and their own network. Let them try. Sometimes searching for the answer is more valuable than the answer itself. In my own experience, people rarely see the physical, psychological, and emotional labor behind the scenes. Sometimes they need to see it and experience it for themselves. By doing so, they gain an appreciation for the gifts and skills we bring to the table. Are We Happy Houring pushes back on those who scream, "How dare a Black woman stop working to be human? How dare she decides not to save me? How dare she makes me figure it out myself?" Are We Happy Houring opposes the superwoman and leans into what the young people call the soft life. It stands against code switching and shifting. Shifting is the way in which Black women adjust or accommodate others based on the context they find themselves in. But Are We Happy Houring says that we are nurturing our humanity. We're able to relax the urge and pressure to do and keep doing. Are We Happy Houring acknowledges that we are human, and I am not a workhorse or a mule of the world. We refuse to donate our bodies, minds, and spirit to the system that gives nothing but high blood pressure, anxiety, and depression to us in return. We are worthy of care, appreciation, and rest. Every time a Black woman stops working to attend to her needs, she resists. Every time she stops working to attend to her needs, she stands in solidarity with her ancestors who can only rest in death. And I believe that people do what you show them, not what you tell them. Every Black girl will grow up to be a Black woman. And I wouldn't want Black girls to think that their worth is bound up in how hard they worked. Not only that, I am the mother of a Black son who will at some point build relationships with women. I don't want to teach him that Black women are workhorses and they don't need rest because they're built to keep going. I want to be intentional in what I teach him. So every time I stop working to attend to my needs, I give a little Black girl permission to take care of herself. And I show a little Black boy that Black women deserve time to care for themselves. I end the way I began. No is a complete sentence. She believed she could, but she needed a break, so she said no. It's okay. You can keep your magic to yourself. Keep it tucked away. They'll have to find another wonder for today. You don't always have to be the one to save the world. It's okay, girl. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Christy, for your wonderful lecture this evening. Are We Happy Houring? Now's the time for questions, for Q&A. We know she traversed a whole range of scripture and Black radical tradition and scholarship on her lecture. So it's a chance for you all to engage with her at this point, right? We have a couple of minutes for Q&A. So I just ask that you use this microphone in my hand. I'll come to you so those online can hear your question, even those online as well. I want to make sure if you all have questions, you can ask them as well. Put them in the chat, and we'll get them out here. But now's the chance to hear from you all. Are there questions? Are there comments? Are there reflections? Are there even maybe testimonies that are resonating with you right now in response to Dr. Christy's lecture here this evening?
Thank you, Dr. Christy Woodbury-Moore. As you were lecturing, I was thinking and wondering, and mainly because I do a lot of things with Sunday school, and I wanted to ask you, how do you respond to the contributions of the Black church and the Black preacher to the oppression of the Black woman?
How do I respond to the contributions of the Black preacher and as it relates to the oppression of Black women? Yeah. I think that I think sometimes we demonize things that we do not fully understand, and so there are those in our community who have yet to have yet to be open to what the scriptures are saying, and they have yet to be trained theologically in terms of how to be responsible readers of the biblical text. And so usually I try to unpack the scriptures that they're using against preachers, but oftentimes I kind of get to the point where it's above me. It's above me now. I can plant the seed, but I'm probably not the one that's going to water it and help it to grow. So that's where I am, I think. And I shared in my lecture, you know, my uncle who loves me dearly. I attend his church all the time. My husband has preached there, loves me as his niece, but will not, you know, acknowledge my call. And so I'm okay with that. Yeah. Oh, boy. That's my dad.
First of all, thank you. The lecture was awesome. But staying right there in that place, are you really okay with the fact that your uncle can only see you as that sweet little niece and not the strong woman of God you've become?
I am, and what I mean by that is I've done the work necessary to get okay with it, meaning I'm not seeking his approval. The only approval I need is the one from the God who called me. And
Amen.
so it took me a while. I had to get there, right? Especially when you are new in ministry, you're seeking a lot of people's approval, right? You want to make sure you do it right. You want to make sure you're not making people mad, all of these things. But I've grown a lot. I am comfortable in my skin. I'll share this. When my grandmother, who is my uncle's brother, passed, my aunt put me on the program as Reverend Christy Moore, and so my job was to give the prayer of comfort. It was intentional that my name was there. It was intentional that it wasn't evangelist. It was Reverend Christy Moore. That's who I am. And what's interesting is that after I prayed, the pastor of the church who allows women to preach, but from the floor, you caught that? Okay. He said to me, "Oh my goodness, your prayer was so powerful. I've got to get you to come back here to preach in the pulpit." Well, thank you for the permission through the prayer. Now, mind you, I haven't received that invitation. I wasn't looking for it. But yes, I'm totally okay, and I really am. Now, there are times I might have said I was okay before now, and I could feel I wasn't really okay inside, but I'm good. I really am.
So what do you suggest to the individual woman that still sometimes face such challenges, where I'll say I'm okay, but at the end of the day, when I reflect upon it, sometimes I'm not okay. How do you go forward in that space or in that place and still be okay?
Well, I'm gonna say this: therapy is the will of God. We can pray and see a therapist, right? Because there is sometimes in our thinking and what we have been taught about how we are to respond to things is tied up in our childhood and how we grew up. And so therapy helps us to unlock whatever that is and to release it, because it's no longer ours anymore. I also think that if we find ourselves in spaces that are oppressive, meaning we really want to stay at this church, but this church does not accept our gifts and our call, I think we need to have a come to Jesus meeting with ourselves and with our God to see if it's our stubbornness and that want to stay, or is this something that you truly believe God has sent you here to be this light in this space. And oftentimes we get them mixed up. It's really our stubbornnness. Or we make it our ministry when God is saying, this is not your ministry, right? But we make it our ministry. So I think we have to do some truth telling within to figure out the why we're still in that same oppressive space. I mean, we think about women who are in abusive relationships, right? And we think that it's easy. It's not as easy as it sounds. That, oh yeah, just leave it, just walk away, because so much is bound up in that relationship for them. So much of their value, their worth, their future, what they think All of these things are bound up in that. And so they may practice leaving, but they never really get to it. And so I think it takes time, right? And so it's not as simple as me saying, well, if you feeling oppressed, just leave. That sounds simple, but it's more complicated because human beings, we're complex beings, and we have other things that are holding us in a space that we have yet to articulate. So that's why I say therapy helps us to deal with the stuff that's laying dormant, that is being activated in some way that we cannot articulate very well.
I'm thinking about Dr. Miller, and I want to ask you what have been in terms of your journey, and because I've personally seen you grow and develop to this place. What would you say have been some positive influences in your journey, not only just in ministry, but in your own personal life as a Black woman? What have been some factors that helped free you? Because in your lecture, you talk about a lot of the factors that we embody and we carry, but what has contributed to help break some of those chains?
So I'm gonna talk about Dr. Miller's mentorship, but I'm also going to mention Dr. Cannon. I say that out loud in case I forget. When I graduated from Tuskegee and I moved to Minnesota to work as an engineer, my call to ministry happened while I was at Tuskegee, but I said, well, Lord, let me help you make another decision. So let me go ahead and move to Minnesota. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. I did not see any women preachers, any women at all. I had no idea. When I moved to Minnesota and I was shopping around for churches, I landed at Progressive Baptist Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, because I saw a Black woman in the pulpit and she was a reverend. She was not an evangelist, and the pastor she was a part of the pastoral staff, and I said, I found it. This is my church, because if this is accepted in this church, I need to be in a space where this is accepted. And so his mentorship and the fact that now, mind you, he's a part of ministerial alliances. You know, the people get together and have dinner on Sundays and stuff like that, and they have joked with him about, oh, I can't believe you got these women in your pulpit, right? That didn't change what he was doing. He actually told them, you need to go to school. Part of your problem is that you're not theologically trained. The other person I'm going to mention is Dr. Cannon. Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon taught me and told me, don't be afraid to be smart. Don't be afraid to be smart, that you don't have to shrink yourself. Don't shrink yourself. Be the person that you have been called to be. And that has helped me in my journey. The other piece that is helpful as well, she taught me that whatever I'm feeling in my gut in terms of what I need to say is probably what I really need to say. But oftentimes, Black women, we don't trust our gut. We don't trust what is happening on the inside, the spirit that is at work. We don't trust that. We want to question it, and then we want to research it and make sure that it's aligning with what everybody else is saying. And in me trusting myself and trusting what was at work in me, it is part of the reason why I was able to do the Deep Men project I did. It's part of the reason why I'm able to write, because I'm writing from what the Lord has placed on the inside. And it has helped me in my preaching. I used to stay up all night to preach because I thought long suffering was the way. I'm just being honest. I thought long suffering, that everybody must stay up all night long to preach. Like, this is crazy, but okay, I guess this is how it needs to come to me, so be it. And that's why I said therapy is the will of God. And I was talking to you, Mike, and you was like, no, that is not, you are going to kill yourself. You cannot do that. And I began to trust what the Lord was placing in me and started to write from that place, not from, well, I guess I gotta suffer. That's get on this cross every week to deliver this message, and that wasn't needed. So my theology needed to shift, because I thought I needed to sacrifice myself in these ways in order to deliver a message. And the Lord was like, no, that's not even how I want you to approach preaching. To tell people that you had to suffer hard in order to get up here, then they won't ever want to. I hope I answered your question a little bit. Okay.
Awesome lecture today, Dr. Woodbury-Moore. So I'm thinking through a couple of things. One is, I think it's Guy Hendricks, I don't remember the name fully, but talks about the ways in which people navigate through their zone of excellence versus their zone of genius. And as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about the ways in which women, Black women in particular, have been required to remain within the confines of their zone of excellence, that is, rewarded for what they naturally do well, but have been moved away from their zone of genius, which is this natural gifting that brings me joy and that's life-giving to us. As we're coming out of my worship class tonight, we were beginning to examine the ways in which worship design and worship leadership often suggest to particular groups of people that as opposed to being liberated, they are to remain confined, and that is their act of worship. And so if we think about that from places of preaching and worship and leadership, what are some ways that you would invite folks to not just re-examine, right, the messages that we put forth in worship, but how might we begin to rectify and also provide places of healing where we've said to a woman, say yes all the time, right? I'll say, yes, Lord, yes, right? And that the will of God for her life is to be exhausted. How do we begin to offer a means of corrective theology through worship and through preaching as both faith leaders and practitioners?
So I was reading something about self-sacrifice and self-denial, and how that is a constant in Black women's lives. We constantly sacrifice ourselves and deny what we need. And I was reading it, I want to say it was in a book called Through the Eyes of Women, or it might have been something else. I'll have to remember it. But in it, it talked about how we view the cross, and that we teach and preach, we lift up suffering as the way to go, versus the fact that the goal wasn't the cross. The goal was that people might be able to live the abundant life and have a new perspective, not the cross itself, but we have fallen in love with the suffering of the cross. And so being able to say yes, in spite of how you feel, in spite of how tired you are, becomes Christian suffering. And we must follow the ways of Christ and take up our cross in that way and suffer as well, because that makes us more holy. So I think we need to make a shift in how we teach that and how we preach that from the pulpit, that the goal was not the cross. That it just became inevitable at some point, but that was not the whole point. And so the other piece, I think, is we often, because we glorify suffering, and when I say we, I'm thinking about the Black church particularly, as we think about, even as we think about the upcoming Good Friday and all of this, and how we like to, get them to the cross, and, he's getting ready to pull it because we about to, on the cross. But when we teach that, we teach Black women that suffering is normative. It should be a part of their normal. So you feeling tired being in this ministry is a part of your Christian offering to the Lord, versus getting some rest so that you can be your full self. The other piece, I think, is we also have Sabbath wrong. We often think that we work and then Sabbath is a reward. No, Sabbath is first. You rest so that you can work, not work so that you can rest. Because what happens when you have not worked enough? Because, right, we have women who also, I haven't done enough. I can't, so I got to keep working. So that means you'll never get to Sabbath, because you can always find more work to do. But you can't be productive unless you rest. And so I think there is work to be done in the church in terms of how we understand Sabbath. Just because we call Sabbath Sunday doesn't mean it's everybody's Sabbath. Just because, right? So as a pastor, your Sabbath is not Sunday. I know that's what you tell people. That's not real. So find another day. Find another day. Okay, right. And so I think there are several things that need to happen. Absolutely. Thank you.
We have a question online. Someone shared, I think you mentioned that Black women oppress Black women. Will you elaborate?
Absolutely. So oftentimes our internalized oppression oppress others that look like us. So if we think about women who are called to preach and women who are preachers, there are obviously there are men who struggle, but there are also other women who think that women should not lead. That is coming from some place that has embedded and internalized oppression. The other piece is there are times when women are in competition with women. Why is that? Why can't we all be sisters and do this together? So there's also internalized oppression that is within the workplace and other spaces that make it hard for women to celebrate one another. Especially if it's only a few women. We take this lack view in terms, instead of saying that there's enough for all of us, we say, no, it's only enough for one black woman in this space. It's only one woman can be all the things, right? And so the challenge that we are faced with is that unless we do the work, and there again, there's this, therapy is the will of God. Unless we do the necessary work to understand why it is we hate each other so much, oftentimes we are going to continue to perpetuate that same thing.
On the heels of those comments, I have a question for you. You mentioned how black women oppress black women. You mentioned earlier your mentors, Dr. Cannon and Dr. Dr. Cannon and then Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, thank you. And you just mentioned the internal work that folks have to do to shift this oppressive nature. But it's not lost to me, the title of your lecture was, Are We Happy Hiring? So there's a communal component to this idea of self-care and caring for oneself. I shall never forget, during my ordination service last summer, you preached the service, and your second point was find your people, right? The need to find your people who can lift you up, to carry you through ministry, protect you, guard you, all things of that sort. Given all the demands that you mentioned on black women as they navigate this world, that makes it difficult to find their people. How do you suggest black women find their people in spite of all the demands that people place on them?
Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, you can. Go ahead. Well, I'm going to start with how I found my people, or how I am finding my people, right? In the lecture, I talked about community reformation. I say that reformation on purpose because we often have some form of a community, but it may not be our people. So we need permission to reform it, to let some people go and let some other people in, right? I think one of the things that I've even heard my husband say is that some of the friends or some of your people are not your people, they're your ministry. And we've got to learn how to know the difference between your people and your ministry. And so that's one thing. And then I also think that I believe that the Lord sends people, we just may not be paying attention. We may not be paying attention because the Lord sends folks our way. But we could be so siloed, but I want those people to be my friends, those over there for whatever reason. And we've missed all the folks that the Lord has sent that are really for us. And so I think it takes a little time for us to be patient and to slow down and evaluate who's ministry and who's not. And have a real conversation with ourselves about that and know that. I think that's part of it. That'll help. Mm-hmm.
Any last question in the room or online before we close out this evening? Okay. All right, well, can we thank Dr. Christy Moore one more time this evening for her lecture? Thank Thankfully, this is not the last time we'll hear from Dr. Christy, for we shall hear from her a second time this coming Tuesday at 11:15 at the Metropolitan Baptist Church. Amen. Can the Met folk make some noise in the house this evening? Amen. So please do join us as we send out the RSVP link. Please let us know you're coming, because there'll be lunch provided after that lecture. Again, this coming Tuesday at 11:15 at the Met, as she shares her second lecture topic, which I believe is I'm Speaking. Amen. So please do come out and join us this coming Tuesday, 11:15 to hear her again. May you have a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you on Tuesday.